Welcome back to the channel here at Seb's Garage. Today we are working on my crapped out Honda Fit. Last time you saw this wonderful thing on the channel, it crapped out on me because I decided to do cool stuff instead of stuff I should have been doing. So, I'm pretty confident I blew up the transmission. I will show you here after moving this light. The transmission had been leaking without my knowledge. You can see all of this is super wet down here, but there's no spot on the ground. This is just like dirty, not wet. So I think it was just kind of leaking, going back, hitting the exhaust, and slightly burning off. So I ran the transmission dry. I went to pull the plug and see what the fluid looked like to see if it was a transmission issue or a clutch issue, and no transmission fluid. Like barely a couple little dribbles came out. It was super dark and very glittery, so transmission's gone. Kind of sucks because now I don't have a spare, but I do have this one ready to go in. So I'm gonna start off by doing transmission, clutch, flywheel, throwout bearing, pilot bearing. I've got a bearing for the idler pulley. We have got output seals and some motor mounts. All this stuff that I've been dreading doing, I'm finally going to get around to because I've been driving a black car or my girlfriend's car instead of this. And I kind of need this thing because I don't want to mess up the interior hauling a bunch of dirty stuff in the other car that I'm trying to keep nice. I'm not going to bore you with a huge time lapse. You've seen me take transmissions out before, so I'm just going to update you with whatever carnage I found along the way. So I'll see you when I find some carnage. Pretty early in the process, and I've already found some carnage. Other than this motor mount down here looking terribly, I will show you that once it's off. One of the first things I do after taking the intake and exhaust off is checking the condition of the slave cylinder. I also tie it out of the way so that I don't have to do anything with the clutch line, which I will have to this time because this is one of the things I tell people to check all the time. If you've got terrible clutch engagement and feel, especially after installing the line, you want to check two things. One is that the master cylinder doesn't have a ton of play. I do have a new one here. And basically what you want to make sure of is that the rod right here, you see how this one's nice and tight and it doesn't have a bunch of in and out play. If I push on it, that's because this is brand new. The one in the car is all sorts of sloppy and I will be changing it. The other thing is if you go behind this boot, just like that, you'll see that this is all sorts of wet. You see all that fluid? That's because the seal here goes out and starts pushing a bunch of fluid into the boot. So you'll never see it. It won't leave spots underneath the car. It'll all just accumulate in here, but it will be leaking and you won't have proper pressure and engagement. So I'm gonna have to order one of these and hopefully I can get one by tomorrow so that I can knock all this out. Carnage number 2. If it sounds a little noisy, it's because I have the AC going on in here. It's like 80 degrees and AC is awesome. So this is your shift select mechanism. Your shift cables connect here and here, and it doesn't want to go into gear. So this would be like 3/4. This is neutral. That is, I don't remember, 3rd or 4th. And if I try to go the other way, I won't engage the gear. So definitely seems like something came apart inside the transmission and just blew the smithereens. Because if I push down, I can get in. So that would be, I don't know, maybe reverse, I think? Maybe that way? I think that one's reverse. I can get into that, and I can pull up, and it also won't go, it kind of wanted to go in. Very forced. That one's reverse. Okay, so this must be the second? I don't know. First or second. It goes into both, and then this one, nothing, which I think is 4th. So definitely something's blown up and terrible. We'll see if I can see anything because I do have to remove that to get the spring out of it. It's got the upgraded M-Tech shift select spring, which will be going in the other transmission. So yeah, this thing is terrible and probably trash unless you want to rebuild it or if you have a cracked case or something like that. So I will probably be selling that. If you're interested, let me know. But for now, I'm just going to continue. It's the next day. Got the transmission out. Still have my other car in here because I haven't taken it out yet. But got the clutch torn apart. It was definitely in need of replacing. I don't know how well you'll be able to tell on camera. You can see like the spot where all the rivets used to be on the clutch disc. The clutch disc is super worn. Flywheel's hot spotted. This bearing's pretty toast. You can also see here some pretty crazy hot spots on this thing. I don't know how well this will show up on camera, but there's some pretty crazy bluing on that. We've also got the clutch disc itself, which was pretty worn. The springs weren't too bad in it, which is kind of, actually, they've got a decent bit of movement. You can see the springs moving in there. So definitely needed a clutch. Pretty sure the bearing here is also nice and noisy. And then let me see if I can get you some better lighting in here. All of the crazy amount of clutch material and some metal shavings and stuff in there definitely means that the clutch springs were rattling around and doing stuff they weren't supposed to. And on top of that, this like doesn't want to move properly. So the inside of the transmission is toast. I don't know what let go in there. But something's certainly not happy and binding in the transmission. So good thing is we're replacing all of it. So I'm gonna get it torn apart, cleaned up, get that bearing replaced, the pilot bearing replaced, and then put everything back on. It is the next morning now as my phone goes off. And last night, my buddy James, the owner of the white Corvette that was here for a while, came over and helped me stab the transmission back in. So now we've got this behemoth. Not really, this thing's pretty small and lightweight. Back in here, it's still very loose and only supported by this guy. So I have to change the trans mount that is up in that area before we can continue, and then I can get the rear one on. And then I also have the passenger side big boy fluid filled mount to replace on this thing. Also going to be doing new axle seals just so that the same leak and failure doesn't happen again. I've also got a new slave cylinder and master cylinder, so the hydraulics are going to get revamped. And yeah, got to work it out for us. So let's get to it. It is a new day. I know I didn't get all that much done the other day, but I got sidetracked with pretty new things that came in for the other car. Before all that can go in, I have to get this thing off the lift. So where we left off was new seals on the transmission. All the motor mounts are in except for the replacement one on the passenger side. I've got this passenger side axle in. I'm about to pop the one on the driver's side and then get all suspension, hubs, brakes, all of that back together. So I'm going to time lapse you real quick, get all of the stuff underneath the car back together, and then we'll continue doing stuff at the top because I still have a table full of crap that needs to go on this car. And we're only 1 week away from Grid Life Midwest at Gingerman. It is the 29th. Damn, man, this month just went right by. And I still got to do a bunch of stuff on the black car, which is what we're taking. So let's get to it. Got all the suspension together on both sides. Wheels are back on. I'm still super stoked on these Advance. I love the way these things look. So now we can get all of this in here done. I got to put the shift select mechanism with the stiffer spring back in here. I'm probably going to have to trim the battery tray because these aftermarket mounts are always a little bit off as far as the bolt hole placement goes. I've got to get shift cables back in. We're going to be replacing all the hydraulic components because this slave cylinder is leaking, and I've got a new master because that one's got a lot of play. We've got a new motor mount to go on this side because this one's busted. So yeah, still a ton of work to get done, and apparently this just unplugged, so now there's no lighting, but I'm gonna get back to it. is the new one here, and you'll see it's got a weird brackety thing here with a rivet. I just sliced that off. We go like that, and then eventually it pries off, and now we can put the new mount in place. Alright, now that the engine is solidly in place and all the mounts are nice and new, we're going to do one more thing before wrapping up all of the plastics for the wheel well and stuff on this side, which is the bearing for the idler pulley. These are known for going bad. You can replace the pulley, but usually the aftermarket ones aren't that great, and doing the bearing itself is cheaper. It's still super easy to do. So I'm going to get all this out and show you what that entails real quick. Basically, you got to undo the alternator mounting bolts, just loosen them. You don't have to take them all the way out. Fold the alternator closer to the engine to get a little bit of the tension off the belt. Move the belt out of the way, and then it's a little 12mm bolt. I've actually, well, let me grab it real quick. I have a shaved down socket that I use because it's a pretty tight squeeze between the frame rail and the pulley bolt. So I use this shaved down socket just so I can do it pretty easily with my long handle quarter drive ratchet instead of trying to get a wrench in there. This is a lot better, and since I had a couple spares of these, I just kind of grinded down the socket, made it work. But yeah, gonna get that out, pop a new bearing in that pulley, and that should be one less annoyance and service item that'll get this car closer to being done, sorted, and ready for sale. Alright, after a little bit of fighting, we got the pulley off. This thing is super crunchy. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. But this thing was making a lot of noise, so I'm going to go ahead and put this face down, hammer this out with a socket, kind of like so, and then we'll press the new one in. Alright, well, hammering was just flinging stuff everywhere, so I'm just going to use my makeshift press here. I do have a hydraulic 20-ton, but a lot of the time, doing this is a lot easier. It took a little bit of force to start getting it loose, and now I lost it underneath the bench. But once it breaks loose, it comes out pretty easily. Let me see what I can concoct here. Probably be a lot easier to do on my actual press, but I'm being stubborn and dumb. Working harder, not smarter. There we go. That should do it. And we have the bearing. So now I'm going to compare it to the new one, and then we'll just press this right in. Alright, so we have new bearing and old bearing, and this is some crappy Duralast thing that didn't last at all. And this is a nice NSK that is Japanese made. It says Japan right on it. And should last really for the life of the vehicle at this point. So that one goes away. This one gets lined up in there. I'm going to use a little wood block to back it with. Get that lined up. actually going to start it this way, and then we'll push it in the rest of the way. There we go. Now it's going in flat. We can push it in a little more. And this is kind of an old trick where you use the old bearing to press in the new bearing. They usually have a little bit of a chamfer, so they come out pretty easily, even if they get pressed in a tiny bit. And of course my glove is stuck. I really should be using my press. I don't know why I'm making this so difficult. Just like that. Make sure it spins nice and round and that it doesn't make any noise. It's nice and smooth. Doesn't seem to be oblonged. So it goes back in the car. Got the belt side of everything done up. Got all the plastics underneath the car all ready to go. And now I want to start it, but before I can do that, we need a clutch and a battery and an intake. The next thing I got to do is going to be replacing this leaky thing. But instead of just replacing one at a time, what I'm going to do is pull the whole system off the car. I've got a brand new slave cylinder. I've got a brand new master cylinder. I can just assemble everything on a bench. That way I'm not risking getting fluid all over the engine bay, and it's just a little bit easier to work on. So I'm going to go do the upside down under dash yoga and remove the master cylinder that's tucked up in that corner, and then show it to you on the bench. All right, so you have the clutch hydraulic system here on the table. You'll see this one's got a decent amount of in and out play. It's got a little slop in there, and this one is leaking internally, as you can see by all of that beautiful goop in there. You can see all the wetness. So I think that the thing that people get confused about the most, I already have the clutch delay valve delete line installed in line in here, is that the line goes directly to the master, but you do need to keep the swivel fitting. So you delete the hard line that goes to the factory delay valve, and then you keep the hard line that goes to the slave cylinder. It's not a one solid piece. You want hard line in there to keep it from flexing. This will still flex even though it's stainless. So now I'm gonna take it all apart. I'm gonna drain all the fluid out of it. I'm gonna put it back together on the bench and then throw it in the car and then bleed it. And then we'll see if the car starts, and hopefully the clutch and transmission feel a whole lot better. All right, clutch hydraulic system is in place. Got the boot in for the fork, got the brand new slave cylinder, factory hardline, clutch delay valve delete. We've got the new master hidden back there. It's a lot easier to do without the battery in the way. Speaking of batteries, I have had absolutely terrible luck with Duralast batteries. They used to be great, and now they're kind of junk. The battery on this just decided to go flat. Like, I didn't drive the car for a couple of days, and then it was just completely flat. A cell died, and I returned it. I'm going to try a Walmart battery. I think it's going to be the same type of thing. I really don't want to spend the money on, like, excess power or anything else that's a higher quality, just because they're so expensive, and this is just a daily beater, but I might have to. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. For now, I'm just going to steal the battery out of my Civic and put it in this. Hopefully I can make sure that that's good, and you know, that car's been sitting for a while, so hopefully that battery's not completely junk either. But before we get that done, I'm going to put the intake back on and make this look a little bit more like an engine bay. Prior to doing that, we got to put transmission fluid in it, because I don't want this transmission blowing up like the last one did. I always just like to fill it through the reverse switch. It's a 27 millimeter. It's easier to remove, and I know that, you know, the amount this takes, so I don't really need to do the fill plug. So I'm gonna grab a funnel, get that filled, put the reverse switch back in, plug it in, put the intake back on. And just like that, we have the entire engine bay back together. I did get the clutch system bled before I put the intake box back in. It's a lot easier to do without this piece in the way. What I usually do is grab the coolant hose that's right here. It's got a clip up underneath this lower intake section. Move that out of the way, and then you have a bunch of room there to work. So yeah, let's see if it'll start. And if it does, probably gonna have to dial in the clutch engagement point, just because every time you replace a master, you should be, really anytime you do anything with the clutch on these cars, you should be adjusting the clutch pedal just to make sure the engagement point is where it is, or is where it's supposed to be, but also so that you're not overextending or underextending the clutch fork, because you can put extra wear that's unnecessary on all of the clutch components if you don't adjust it properly. I like making it so that it's kind of right in the middle. You want a little bit of play when you first get on the pedal, but you don't want the engagement point of the pedal to be like way too tall or way too low. They're doing road construction, so excuse all the noise, but I'll move my seat up a little bit, see if this thing starts. Shifter feels like a shifter should. Starts right up. It's actually way quieter. That starter still has a crazy grind. I got a starter over on the bench that I might throw in, but it sounds a lot quieter. There's a lot of bearings and stuff that were very noisy in that transmission, plus a lot of the clutch stuff was also very worn. So I'm gonna very lightly here see if it'll move forward. The clutch engagement point seems to be pretty low, so I'm gonna have to move that so that it's up a little bit, but it moves. Let's see if it'll go into reverse. Yep, I just have to mess with the clutch engagement point. So do that real quick, and then we'll take it for test drive. All right, we are test driving the new transmission, which is really just Jay's old transmission, in the Daily Driver Fit. Much quieter with all the new bearings in it. And check it out, I have a working fifth gear. So we're cruising, doing 50 at about 2800 RPM, right there. Everything sounds good so far. I do still have to play around with the adjustment on the clutch master cylinder just a little bit. It's a little looser than I would like, and the grabbing point is a little closer to the floor than I would like. So I'm just going to bring that up a little bit to get rid of a little bit of that free play. You do still want a little bit in there, but it's got a little more than I like. And then, yeah, we'll be on to the next thing. Well, I was going to try to get some more stuff done on the silver car, but then I realized, since it took me a handful of days to get all that transmission work done, that I'm very quickly running out of time to get my black car done in time for Grid Life. I've got some new stuff for it that I'm going to be putting on before I leave there, and I'm hoping to see a lot of you guys there. I will be there all weekend with some special merch and stickers that I'll be handing out to anybody that comes to say hi. So find me at the car show by the pond with this thing. And we will be doing some fun new stuff on that very soon, including maybe even test fitting some of all this wonderful stuff that we just got in. But that will do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.